Hey friends, it's Laura with Laura's Handmade Haven. Welcome or welcome back. I'm so glad you joined me today. This is part 3 for this week's video series and the Sweet Land Sew Along. This video is going to focus on the machine applique process, and we will have our final reveal of that gorgeous applique block. I do hope that you enjoyed parts 1 and 2. If you have any questions about just matching up your fabrics, sewing your shapes, or turning them out, make sure you check out part 1. In part 2, we went over block layout and glue basting, so if you have questions about that, check out that video. And now let's get started on our machine applique and have our reveal.
Our block is dry and we're back at the sewing machine. So I'm going to swing you down here so you can see what I'm doing. And we're going to talk through some settings on your machine and the stitch that I use, which there's definitely different ways to do applique on your machine. I do not do needle turn applique. I do not applique by hand. Some of you may be doing that, and I give you much applause and kudos for that. I'm just not a needle turn hand applique girl. I love my machine stitching and it's much quicker and easier for me to do that than to do the hand applique. So I am using, as I said before, I'm using a Juki DX7. I use the clear foot that came with my machine. It has a cute little triangle in the middle there. Hopefully it will focus and you can see that. Yeah. And I'm still using the Schmetz Microtech needle, but I am using that clear foot. And then I will put my machine on a zigzag stitch, and I use a really small zigzag stitch. So my initial settings, my default settings for a zigzag is 3.6 on the width and 1.4 on the length, but I take my width down to 1.8 and my length down to 0.9. So I am using a very small zigzag stitch to do my applique. Now I've decided that on this quilt, I'm going to use the same color thread on all fabrics, no matter what. Sometimes I'll color match the thread with the fabric. On this quilt, I've just decided I'm going to use a dark brown, and it's actually a dual duty. 8930 is the actual color if you're looking for it at your store, but it's just a dark brown color. It's not quite as harsh as a black would be, but it gives enough dimension that it looks really neat, and it's a nice outline stitch on those applique shapes, and I really like it. So that's what we're going to be using, or it's what I'm going to be using. Okay, so when I look at this block and I start thinking about how I'm going to attack it, I want to basically applique bottom up. So anything that is touching the background and only the background, I want to applique that first. So when I look at this, the first thing that I see that I should applique are basically all the pieces of bias tape. Now I would applique the flag stems before, or the flag poles before the flower stem, because they're behind this middle stem. These I would applique probably, it doesn't really matter which ones, if I do these or this one first, because they all get tucked behind this. So you're not going to see which one is really overlapping, because no one's overlapping on the visual that you can see, or on the part that you can see. And then the bird legs, I would applique those before I would go around the birds. I would do the birds before the wings, because the birds are closer to the background than that wing. Same thing with the flowers. Now, on the flowers, though, this is what I kind of started doing, and it really does help. When you have layered shapes like this, if you're concerned that you're going to get a pucker in the middle, and it does happen from time to time, you can actually stitch this circle down first, and then this one, and then the flower, because these circles do not cover where these little pivot points are. Now, if this circle was bigger and it was covering up all of these little pivot points for the petals, I would do the flower before the circle. If that makes sense. Just because you want to be able to hide all of the starts and stops as you can, because like on the bird, I'll start and stop behind this wing. So I won't need to do a lock stitch or a back stitch. I can just start and stop behind that wing, and you'll never even know that I did it. Okay, so I think probably the best thing to do is just kind of start stitching, and you can kind of watch and think through why I'm making the decisions I'm making. And yeah, And any questions you have, put in the comments down below, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Now, this is the same as when we were sewing our Sew Simple shapes. You want to go at the speed that you're comfortable with. So if you're not going as fast, or if you're going faster than me, then all of that is fine. This is something that you need to do at your pace. Okay, so I'm just going to start with the bird legs down here. I'm going to show you a little trick on the bird legs. So stay tuned for that. Now remember, this does go into the seam, but I'm still going to go around the bottom of it. Now when I get up here, rather than cutting the thread, I'm just going to jump over to the other leg because it's going to be behind the bird. You're not going to see it. Now, since everything is glued into place, that's why I can easily move this block around and not have to worry about anything falling off on me. That's why, like I said, I use the Eileen's Tacky Glue. You could definitely use like the Quilter Select Free Fuse. I've used it before too. It's really nice. It's whatever you like. I know some people use like Elmer's glue too, and that works perfectly fine. So. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish one of these birds because I can. Now, like I said, I'm going to start behind the wing because I want to be able to just sew. I don't have to start and stop. I don't have to do a stay stitch. I don't have to do a back stitch or anything. I can just start sewing and stop sewing underneath that wing because the wing will be over top of it and lock those stitches into place, and you won't have to worry about them coming out. Just like when you're piecing a block. Now on corners, I like to stop on the outside corner when it's like that, because that way you can just pivot and it's a really nice smooth little triangle, or a smooth little zigzag stitch. Sorry, sometimes it's hard for me to talk while I'm stitching. Now his wing is a top layer. You're going to see all of the stitching that you do on that. There's nothing to hide on that little wing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start on the side right here. And I'm using the triangle on my clear foot, which I should have mentioned this before. The little triangle, I'm putting the point of the triangle, so that little part right there, right on the edge of my fabric. And then I get my zigzag basically perfectly spaced right on the edge of that fabric all the way around the shape. And that really helps me align where my zigzag, where my applique is going to be. And I'm just using my hand, my right hand, to move this big block around to get that curve real nice and smooth. And again, you just go at the pace that is comfortable for you. You don't need to feel like you need to go at a certain speed. It's whatever speed you are comfortable at. And on that point, I'll make sure I'm on the right-hand side because it's an outer point. And that will make sure my zigzag is nice and smooth to go on down and meet back up with where I started. And I'll use a stop stitch or a stay stitch to finish up that wing. So here's our little bird. One of two are completed. So let's go ahead. I'm going to probably do like half of this block. That's what I'm going to do for you. I'll do half the block, and that way you can kind of see how each element is done because it is mirrored, basically. So yeah. All right. Let's go back. I'm putting these red ones underneath this. Let's see. Where do we want to go next? Let's do this stem here. Now remember how I was like, don't glue the whole thing down? It's because that way we can bend these back to keep going up our stem. They're glued in place and they'll go right back where they were supposed to be. But while I'm moving through that, I don't have to worry about them being in my way. Same thing with this flower. And this is going to be under the flower, so it doesn't matter that I'm not going all the way to the bottom or to the end of this bias tape, because it's going to be under the flower. You're never going to see it. And again, we're going to pull these back. Hopefully that kind of showed you why you want to think through where you're going to glue and where you're not going to glue, because that way you can move things out of your way as you're machine stitching. All right, now on these I'm going to start right on the point, and we'll just go all the way around. I started with a stay stitch and I will end with a stay stitch. And on these little curves like this, just, you know, stop and pivot as often as you need to stay on the edge of that shape. Do the same thing for the next one. I'm just going to move this little center bias tape back just a smidge so I can get in there to this flag. I don't need to back stitch there because that center stem will go over the flagpole. And then I'm also going to do these little red petals because they're going behind that stem. Need to remember that on my other blocks. I mean, they don't have to all be the exact same, I guess. But if I want them to be the same, I need to remember I put those behind the stem instead of in front of it. Now I don't need to start and stop on that one because it's behind that middle stem. So it will be locked down into place when I stitch the middle stem of the flower up. Okay, so on this one, all right, so I'm going to do a little cheat here. I am going to start right here at the base of the blue on the flag, and I'm going to stitch up. Rather than stitching the red and then the blue and possibly getting a double applique stitch there, which I don't really like to, I don't really want that to happen. I'm going to strategically stitch my flag into place so I only have the one seam. So now when I get back around to the blue where I started, I can pivot and do the other two sides of the blue, and then this flag will be completely done. And then I will do a stay stitch right there. All right, let's do this heart. The last thing we have to do on this side is this flower here. And like I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and work center out on this because there's nothing to hide here. All of the layers are going to be seen. So it doesn't matter. If the flower was the type where I could hide some of my stitching, like we did with the bird wing, then I would do it first, but it's not. And this way, if I start with that center circle, I'm less likely to have any puckers when I work my way out. Because that does happen sometimes, especially if you're first starting with applique and stuff and you're not used to moving all the layers of fabric and things around. You can get it a little off. You can get a little puckered. So this is one way that you can kind of help prevent that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and then I will show you the center too. All right, now that I have both of the sides done, I can just do this middle section, and I'm going to start with this stem for the flower. I just flip that flower up, start going down the stem. I'm going to kind of hold this a little taut across those just to make sure it stays nice and straight. Same thing across those little flagpoles. And then I can just go back up the other side. All right, same as I did with these smaller blue flowers. I'm just going to start with that middle oval first. Started with the stay stitch, I'll stop with the stay stitch. I'm going to start in a concave area on this petal. We'll work our way around the flower, work our way around the base, and we'll have this block done. Okay, so I have one little oopsie that I need to fix, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So on this little bird head right here, you can see that I got off of the line and I have some extra little zigzags because I fixed it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip the block over to the back side, and I'm going to use my seam ripper to rip out some of that bobbin thread for where that little oopsie is at. And then on the front of the block, that brown thread will just pull right up and I can cut it off. I just wanted to share that because I thought, well, you may not be perfect either. And this is just a really quick, easy way to fix if you do happen to get off the shape a little bit. All right, so that's fixed. And then I'm just going to trim a few more strings, and then we will have our reveal and wrap up. Here's our block. It's one of 4 that we need to make for the Sweet Land quilt. This is one of the 4 applique blocks. Now this, obviously, I have not pressed this block out. It's going to look a lot better once I do. And I haven't trimmed it down to 16.5 inches. The reason I haven't done that is because I have 3 more of these to make. So I want to leave this size because that way I can kind of use this as an in-person pattern to create my other 3, just for placement and dimensions and just kind of a really good visual reference. Now the sew along guide does have great instructions this time. It has an amazing block layout pattern that you can follow for these applique blocks, and it really is very helpful. But sometimes I like something like real in front of me so I can kind of see how my block looks, because I may have a few little modifications that weren't in the original design. So that's just my last little bit of advice, my last little tip for you on the Sweet Land quilt for this week. But good luck on getting your 4 applique blocks done. They are super cute and super fun. Just give yourself some grace and some patience and some time, because they will take you some time to get them completed. Now I am going to give you, here's like my upside and my downside to a 1-color applique. My upside is I don't have to change my thread out in my machine when I'm machining appliquing. I just keep going and going and going, and that is amazing. The downside is it is enough of a contrast that you want to make sure you're really close to the edge of all of your shapes, because you're going to see every single one of those stitches. So if you're a newer appliquer or new to machine applique and you want something that you can kind of hide a little bit better, then I would definitely suggest you go ahead and try to match your thread color to your fabric color. But if you want to give it a little faster approach to it, then consider using one color for all of your applique. Until next time, find joy in all you do. Carve out some time for crafting and creating, and remember, it's always better when you make stuff up.